Dan, hold. Breaking news here. I just getting in word that from here on out, Taylor Swift is only going to games against the Chicago Bears, and because she doesn't understand rooting for a team that can't actually move the football. So she's only going to go and root for teams that are playing the Chicago Bears because that's how she now perceives the game of football. That like
Sounds
she just sees
right.
them as just like as this team that just gives the other team wins. And so I believe next week she's going to be in the box for Jerry Jeudy. The Broncos at Soldier Field.
Okay.
She's going to be dating Jerry Jeudy next week, and we'll keep kind of going from there. Very exciting for Broncos Nation next week because they need it just as badly as anyone.
Well, she'll get a tour of the country, which is beautiful. Get a lot of new places. Not, because I'm sure she's never toured anywhere throughout the country.
No.
She'll get to take in some.
She's
new
a real
sites.
homebody.
She'll be real nice. But hey, kudos to her and the Kelsey family. It sounds like they had a wonderful time, and she got to see her apparently new boyfriend score a touchdown. So that's just beautiful. I mean, such wholesome content.
I gotta be honest, no joke. So like all last week, so on my morning show, in my radio station, me and my co-host were talking about it because we carry the Kansas City Chiefs actually on my station. So we talk Chiefs football, a decent amount. I try to, and long story short, that obviously was percolating, and Travis Kelce said he texted her and all this stuff, casually hanging out. So we talked about it in the morning show, and I was very much like, "There's no way this is real. Like, it's as real as that."
Because it just developed too quickly, right?
Yeah, that Travis said he might have texted her, got a hold of her. Maybe they did grab a quick dinner somewhere really quick, like he flew somewhere, met her or something. And I was like, but it's going anywhere. And when they announced an hour before the game yesterday that she was going to be there, I literally was like, I'm a dead man. Like, I'm dead. Like, the Bears were not winning this game. The Bears were not winning this game anyways. They're definitely not winning this game if Travis Kelce has got Taylor Swift to actually show up at this game. Chiefs by $1 billion, and it was about that.
It was indeed. Yeah, some added motivation that the Chiefs didn't even need going into that game, and the Bears
couldn't believe it.
Anything that they can get. We will get to that very depressing and I'm sure animated reaction from yourself later on in this recap episode. But enough of the housekeeping. Let's dive into our Week 3 recap. Yeah, so if the image there didn't give away the highlights for sure, the Miami Dolphins taking up about 60% of real estate in this one, and then of course the Buffalo Bills putting up a lot of points as they continue to cruise as well. A couple of the notable games for this slate.
I think they play each other next week too.
The two of them, I didn't even check to see if
I think that popped into my head that they may actually play each other.
They do indeed. Buffalo hosts Miami. 1 o'clock game. I wonder if they can do some.
Can we get that into Sunday Night Football? Because Sunday Night Football next week is Jets and Chiefs. So if we can. If we can find a way to get that Buffalo Bills Miami game flex, that would be lovely. Can we do that?
Early season flex would be much in favor for sure. It was a weird week, actually, I would say. The last couple of weeks were fine. I know week 1 we had talked about how that was a strange start to the NFL season, not much offense, and offenses have been slow to get going the last couple of weeks. But I thought last week in particular was more normal and par for the course, what we expect. This week, once again, it's like records breaking, weird records at that. We had lopsided scores. We had a scoregami this week, and some history being made. So, interesting week in the NFL, and we will kick off our recap, Mark, with the Thursday night game between the Jets and the 49ers. Can't imagine this is going to take up too much of our discussion because it's going to be the same thing with the 49ers and probably the same thing with the Giants as well. 49ers win this one 30-12, and it's the 13th straight victory there for San Francisco. That's their straight regular season win, I should say. McCaffrey tying Jerry Rice as well for 12 consecutive games with a touchdown in franchise history. But really, this one, they didn't have Brandon Ayuk, did the 49ers. So Deebo Samuel was the guy that lit up the box score, as well as Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy was kind of more of the same of what we've seen the last couple weeks. Didn't kill them. Wasn't overly amazing either. But Mark, the Giants, just 29 yards rushing. Obviously,
brutal.
couldn't get anything going to start this game. And Daniel Jones tops it all off with no touchdowns and a pick to his resume for this one. So boiled down to the Giants couldn't move the ball, and the 49ers controlled this one from the start.
Yeah, no Saquon Barkley, so that obviously hurts the Giants offensively. You know, as far as taking anything from this game, the one thing I will say is that I still don't know exactly what this Giants team is. What I do think we know is that this Giants team cannot compete at the top level, but they're certainly better than the bottom of like the Cardinals, Bears, bottom barrel teams like Broncos right now. I feel like they are better than that just slightly, but they're not anywhere.
Shade on the Cardinals. They just beat the Cowboys big time.
Yeah, but that's because everyone else was likes the Cowboys a lot more than I have. I had, if you watched my video, I had said, I think I said it on this show, I had the Cowboys, my power rankings, like I think I had them 8th last week after the 2-0 start. I was not biased to the Cowboys. That was before the Trayvon Diggs injury as well. So, but you know what I'm trying to say is I feel like we know now the Giants, I think the Giants ceiling is still very much like competing for a wild card. I really do think there's that possibility of that. But a lot of that'll be determined in the next couple of weeks. I don't think they're bottom out, like only going to be a 4-win team. As far as the San Francisco goes, what we learned from San Francisco is nothing new. They're a wagon. They are the most talented football team, maybe in the NFL, definitely in the top 2 or 3. And the question will be Brock Purdy, because there were times during this game where Brock Purdy, he looked small, he looked unathletic, and he looks inaccurate at times. Like the old saying is like, well, he can make any throw. Brock Purdy can't make any throw. I firmly believe that. I really, truly believe Brock Purdy can't just make any throw. He's not that, like, that verbiage does not go with Brock Purdy. But what Brock Purdy does really well is he runs Kyle Shanahan's offense really, really well. And that is what is keeping him alive and afloat right now. But it ultimately is one of the things I think could be the ceiling on the 49ers in their season. They haven't really been tested yet in that moment where they need Brock Purdy to just step up and make the plays. Maybe they won't be tested in that way, and maybe they will walk to a Super Bowl. I don't know. But right now, I think that's the only legitimate question you can have about the Niners.
Yeah, San Fran 3-0 right now. I think that's a good point. They haven't truly been tested or pushed to their limit or even threatened for a game because they have just been leading so handily in each of these contests. So it's a good point, kind of dissecting what we've seen from them so far. It's hard to make grand proclamations, but you'd be hard pressed to say they're not a top 3 team in the NFL right now, just based on the performances we've seen from them and just the general roster that they do have. I mean, I can't imagine if they had a top 12 quarterback leading this offense. That would just be next level. I'd probably have them as a shoo-in to go to the Super Bowl right now. And I mean, they're one of the top teams in the NFC, but it's interesting. We've been seeing some really good play from NFC teams as of recently, and the AFC has kind of struggled. We'll get more to that in a moment, but we'll stay in the NFC for our next game with the Falcons on the road at the Lions.
Yeah.
And, or I'm sorry, the Titans at the Browns first, getting ahead of myself. Titans 3, Browns 27. Another rough outing for Tannehill and company after they had somewhat bounce back last week. Returned back to their week 1 status, only 3 points managed in this one. 6 first downs and 94 total yards of offense for Tennessee. 2.1 yards per play. This was the fewest yards ever since moving to Tennessee and transferring the franchise from Houston to the Tennessee Titans. So that's a lot of years there in Tennessee, and they've never put up fewer yards of offense than they did in this game. Pretty incredible stuff there. I will say, Myles Garrett, 3.5 sacks. He was a huge headline for this game and really took over. But this was the best game of Deshaun Watson's tenure in Cleveland, and he really
Yeah.
looked a lot more polished and comfortable.
And that included a ridiculous throw 20 yards behind him, and that was the best game of his. I know.
That was an unbelievable. I can't believe he did that. He literally threw it backwards, and he threw it at about 35 miles an hour.
It's crazy.
With 5 feet to go. Yeah, that was insane. But yeah, no, I mean, I'll toss it to you with that. With Watson just being a little bit more comfortable. I mean, maybe, like we were saying, he is almost certainly not returning to form that he was in the heyday in Houston. But he also is probably not as bad as we saw the first 2 weeks. Now we're seeing maybe a little bit more comfort and what he can be with this offense, especially when Amari Cooper is healthy and on the field for him.
If the Browns aren't playing the Steelers, they might be able to beat anyone in the league. Like, that's how good their defense is playing right now. And offensively, I felt like they came out and made a real statement without Nick Chubb. Watson did play much better, even with that ridiculous pass aside. And so Cleveland's dangerous. Cleveland is officially in the dangerous category. They struggle within their own division. But again, that division is, I think, the most unique division as far as the rivalries and everyone who beats who and how they beat each other. I mean, yeah, I know the Jets just lost for like 15 straight in a row to the Patriots or whatever, but it feels like certain teams just can't play. It's like the Bears with the Packers just can't play the Packers, but yet, on a good year, they can play with other teams. That's what Cleveland feels like right now. And for Tennessee, this was a chance for them to build some momentum and continue to kind of shock and surprise people. And they just completely laid an egg. And I don't know what it is with that offense. I don't think it's the scheme. I don't necessarily think it's all the talent. I think it's the motor, the Ryan Tannehill inaccuracies, like the ability to just like spark big plays. I don't know what it is exactly, but that is, it was ugly offensive football from Tennessee. And even though they have a very solid defense, when your offense is just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, eventually the dam's going to break in this modern NFL with the way the rules are. And especially against a capable Browns offense like that. This is what I like to call a pecking order game. I don't think either of these two teams are going to win their division. They were both teams that we both put in that wild card chase. And this is a pecking order game. Cleveland now gets to earn the right to be ahead of Tennessee in that pecking order as far as the AFC rankings go. And I know that seems silly. It's like, oh, yeah, well, they beat them. It's the standings things. But you know what I mean? Like, it's early in the season. Teams are trying to figure out who these teams are, where they belong in power rankings and feeling about them. And
yeah, Cleveland, just moving forward, you feel better about Cleveland, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tennessee, not a lot of juice right now.
Their physicality seems to be lacking with that team. They used to play bully ball the last few years. I mean, Derrick Henry is able to just rip off 5-yard runs when they needed it the most. They are struggling to run the football. And I don't know if it's maybe Derrick Henry's not as healthy as build. I don't know if the offensive line is just not blocking as well as they used to. I haven't been able to do, that deep of a dive into this team, but it does seem that way. And then Ryan Tannehill is just not providing anything. But also, I mean, what does it say about your last 2 quarterback draft picks when Ryan Tannehill is having these terribly bad starts, and there hasn't even been a whiff of reports of Will Levis or Malik Willis threatening anything in practice, or even just trying to get these guys involved with even special packages on the field to have Malik get you some spark on a run? Nothing. So I feel it's a rough situation now for Tennessee, because that tells me, and maybe, Will Levis is a rookie, still got time. Maybe he's just not, up to it right now. But I mean, I do wonder where Tennessee goes from here, especially if they're that middle of the road team. They're not going to get a top quarterback. Then what are they going to do? They're going to be in quarterback purgatory for quite a while. So that's something I'm looking at. But yeah, they got to get the run game right, because that's been their bread and butter. And, you got DeAndre Hopkins, but you're not really able to do much with him if no one's respecting your ability to run. So they're going to need that. They got a trip to the Bengals next week. And then it's Colts, Ravens, Falcons, Steelers. So With the way the Colts have been playing lately, that's certainly not a gimme for them either. That's a tough stretch there for the Titans for sure. All right, moving on from the Titans and Browns to the Falcons and the Lions. Falcons 6, Lions 20 in a game where the Lions really took control for most of this. Their defensive and offensive fronts won the day, held Atlanta to just 44 yards rushing, which this has been their MO this year, was Atlanta's ability to run the football 200 yards here, 200 yards there. 44 yards on the ground for them. Meanwhile, the Lions put up 115 on the ground themselves. Speaking to the defensive front there for Detroit, 7 sacks of Desmond Ridder. Just Atlanta could not remotely get comfortable or settled and able to kind of stack some drives there. They were getting stalled pretty quickly. And despite not the greatest play from Jared Goff and company, he did run in a touchdown and had another through the air. They were able to do the necessary things to pull out a physical win and win by 14 points. So you'll take that any day. Even if it was you only putting up 20 points in your high-powered offense, you'll take that against a Falcons team that had been rolling up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Lions did exactly what you need to do defensively against a team like Atlanta. If you can stop the run and make them panic and get behind, then they put the ball in the quarterback's hand, and Desmond Ridder had to throw the ball 38 times, and he's clearly not capable and comfortable doing that. And that just led to just seemed like an easy victory for the Lions. Shout out to Sam Laporta. Jared Goff finding his tight end. They got rid of Hawkinson. They go right back to Iowa and go get the next tight end. And Laporta looks like a real player for this offense, who they still haven't got Jamison Williams back yet. They're not even at 100% full strength with Montgomery, Williams, all the pieces offensively. And so look out for the Lions. Great bounce back win for them.
4 NFL tight ends to come out of Iowa are also the last 4 tight ends for Iowa. George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, and now Sam Laporta.
And they're all real players. If there was any
question
in the
about
NFL.
tight end they're all good. Exactly. Quality starting NFL tight ends. Iowa's tight end for sure. But didn't mean to cut you off there, but had to include that nugget.
And that's it. I mean, the Lions quality win, bounce back. You had a weird, got out of hand loss against Seattle at home. You're 2-1. The rest of the division is looking really shaky. The Lions by far look like the most capable team in the NFC North right now.
They're just on a comfortable trajectory. No, there's no worry or concern. There's not glaring holes with this Detroit team. Yeah, you feel confident they're going to win this division already. And to your point, with the way that the rest of the teams in the division are playing, there's not much optimism elsewhere in the NFC North, that's for sure. The Saints go on the road to the Packers. So we're talking about another NFC South, NFC North matchup here. The Packers edging out the Saints by a point, 18-17. Kind of a heartbreaker for Bears, Vikings, Lions fans who wanted to see the Packers fall, and they did fall back to earth, Mark, for sure. I mean, Jordan Love came into the game as the NFL's highest rated passer, and everyone's going, what the hell? This doesn't make any sense. 6 touchdowns, no picks. Came back to earth in his first home start here at Lambeau Field. Only 50% completion percentage, but to his credit, leads a comeback. They were down 17-0 in the fourth quarter, and they rallied in the final 11 minutes to win this game. Of course, that all comes with the caveat that Derek Carr went down with an AC sprain, is what it's being called right now, which is best case scenario, but he's at least probably going to miss a week, if not multiple weeks with that. But once he went down, Jameis Winston came in, almost got them down to score a touchdown. And then they almost won with a Blake Groupie, I think is his last name, how you pronounce it. Field goal in the end, but he missed a 46-yarder, and the Packers hold on to win 18-17. So kudos to them. They found a way to win in the face of adversity, which is what you want to see from any NFL team. You know they're going to face plenty of it throughout the year. Rough one for the Saints, though, especially with Derek going down. Like, that's a game that you needed to hang on to, and the defense kind of buckled when it mattered most.
I wouldn't even say that as much as that they just fell under the tidal wave of momentum. That Lambeau Field crowd was rocking. Credit to the Packers offense for just finally getting it together. They played like garbage the first 3 quarters. The field was sloppy. Love and his receivers weren't on the same page with a lot. And then finally, Dobbs came up with some big plays late. And Jordan Love, to his credit, did the opposite of what he did in fourth quarter last week against the Falcons, where he just laid an egg in the fourth quarter. He was really brilliant in the fourth quarter. And the Saints, they just felt like they were trying to hold on to something and couldn't do it. And even then, they were in position to kick a game-winning field goal, and their kicker missed a 46-yarder on the road at Lambeau. So I still think I leave this game feeling like, when healthy, if Derek Carr's playing, the Saints are a better football team than the Packers. They would have won that game. I truly believe that if Derek Carr had stayed healthy and not gotten injured. And the Packers overall are in this unique space where they at times, I mean, they were an infirmary yesterday. People talk about the Ravens injuries. The Packers are missing 2 starting offensive linemen. They haven't had Christian Watson yet. They've missed Aaron Jones since halfway through week 1. So Jair Alexander didn't play yesterday. So to the Packers' credit, sloppy play early. Well, they were running out there with a ton of no-name guys and backup dudes, especially in the offensive line. They had a ton of penalties in the first half. So they battle-tested. A win's a win. The best thing I'd take from it if I was the Packers fan is Jordan Love in the crunch time. They got on the same page, and he actually looked pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he did look good, and composed would probably be a good word there.
Composed.
He's a guy that, it's even though it's his first, real season as an NFL starter, he's been in the league for a little bit and seen some things. So
I will say that Jordan Love is already really feels like, to me, like very much like rookie young Dak Prescott, where he has mobility and he really can take advantage of his mobility. And there are times when he picked up a 15-yarder and extended a play on a run down the sideline and he stayed in bounds. That looked like Dak when he was young, right? Where it's like, oh, man, this guy can move. But really, he's best in the pocket in that 10 to 30-yard range. Not exactly a big, deep ball thrower, but accurate and really efficient offensively. The key for Jordan Love versus Dak, what we've seen is Dak has seemingly aged really quickly and had some really bad injuries, that shattered, devastating ankle injury, things like that, to where his mobility is very gone now. And Dak losing that in his game, he's really lost an element. So if Jordan Love can keep this mobility and keep his body healthy, he has a chance, in my opinion, to really be a Dak Prescott level player so far. Through a couple games of watching him, that's what it feels like. Really efficient. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not just going to burn you on Hail Marys and go routes and deep balls that are just killers. But he does seem like he's the guy who can extend drives, be really just deadly accurate in that system. Again, it's all that same Kyle Shanahan type system that Matt LaFleur runs as well. Sean McVay type of system that is all about play action and knifing you down the field, 8 and 9 and 10 play drives, just picking up 6, 7, 8, 10 yards in chunk plays. If the system stays right and if they build the players around him, it looks like they have, like imagine Jordan Love in the Kyle Shanahan offense. Like that's what it feels like. He is that type of player so far. Still really early, and the jury's not the book's not 100% written, but that's my take early on.
And they've been able to do this, and this is why this victory for Green Bay was probably even more meaningful than most. It was that they did this without Aaron Jones, without Christian Watson,
Bakhtiari.
So once those two come back, Bakhtiari, those three come back, we're talking about Jordan Love having a lot of help already in an offense that had been, I don't want to say rolling, but definitely consistent and showing the ability to move the football down the field. After a short break, we're going to discuss the biggest game of the week, the Dolphins drumming of the Denver Broncos. What is going on in Colorado and Miami? They are just celebrating like there's no tomorrow. Huge win for them, a record-setting one at that. We will talk about that on the other side of this break as we pause for a word from our sponsors.
Serving the Quad Cities area since 1973. And with over 50 years of excellence on their track record, you'll see why it's so easy to trust their experts when it comes to all of your home improvement projects. This family-owned business has you covered on all your needs. Protect your home or building from the elements today and get great roof repair services. Need new windows? No problem. Durham Remodeling can upgrade your windows and doors. Whether you want to upgrade the little details in your home or office, Or want to tear a room down and start fresh? The expert contractors at Durham Remodeling have your back. Even the smallest changes can completely transform your space. Ready to start entertaining your friends for backyard barbecues? Durham Remodeling will help you plan, design, and build your deck and patio for the perfect outdoor space. Durham Remodeling's work is 100% guaranteed, so you can rest assured that you're getting the best service around. Call 309-786-6715 today for your free estimate for all your roofing, siding, flooring, windows, and painting needs. That's Durham Remodeling, 309-786-6715.
Appreciate the sponsors here on the show and for the For Frequency Sake podcast network. So very excited to have Durham Remodeling, Christopher Allison, and Ryan Allison Tattoos, I should say, and many others on board here for the show. And you can go to forfantasysakeqc.com to see our full lineup of shows. We've got betting, we've got fantasy football, we've got wrestling, racing, all the stuff that you can think and want. We've got the commentary for you, so please go check that out. But Mark, we continue on with our recap here with the Broncos 20, Dolphins 70, the third highest score ever in NFL history, second highest regular season score, second only to the 1966 Washington and New York game, in which Washington scored 72 points. Bears did score 73 in the 40s in one of those championship games. But yeah, so that was making history. They also made history with the most yards ever in a single game, 726. And I'm just going to rattle off some stats here because that's really all that this game was about. And it tells the story in a nutshell. 6 of the fastest recorded players on the field in an NFL game this year are all Miami Dolphins. So all the top 6 fastest, all on Miami. Devon A. Chan, which is what he wants to be called. Apparently there was a report. He is not A. Chain. He even told the Dolphins media staff to change the pronunciations in the media guides. It is A. Chan, apparently. The rookie and Raheem Mostert, the veteran running back, scored 4 touchdowns apiece, and together they combined for 375 total yards as Tua goes for 304 and 4 touchdowns through the air himself. So what a absolute clinic the Dolphins put on offensively, defensively, as well as Russell Wilson, for the first time in his career, starts 0-3 to begin a season. And, it would be remiss if we didn't mention that they could have actually become the highest score in NFL history, but Mike McDaniel took a knee, classy move at the end, said we're not about to try and run up the score. That's not what we're here for. And so they still hang on to that number 2 spot. But nonetheless, Mark, all good things for Miami, all bad things for Denver, a really bad loss. And Sean Payton clearly felt that in that post-game presser as well.
I'll say this. I'll just start with this. And I know we'll talk about the Bears in a minute. But as soon as the Chiefs put their backups in, the Bears scored points and they picked off Blaine Gabbert. Like, as soon as Miami put their backups in, they kept scoring like that, like Denver. And I think that says a lot about where this Denver's team is at. Like, the psyche of this team is at right now. They're in a bad spot. I mean, the Bears were as horrible as you could be yesterday, and they couldn't even give up 70 points to the Kansas City Chiefs and the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, it's insane. Like, they completely quit. Everyone in that room needs, like, in my opinion, they need to do a firing. They need to do something. Like, you can't just go back to work today and everyone be okay. It's brutal. I mean, it's absolutely embarrassing and brutal. And 70 points should never be allowed to happen. Like, you just should not exist. Even in today's offensive game, it should not exist. It shouldn't happen. And it's not the Dolphins' fault. It really wasn't. Like, they weren't like just purely put on. They were running the ball.
Trying, yeah.
They were running. What do you want us to do? They weren't throwing it. It's not like Mike Waite went out there and threw for another 300 yards when he came in as the backup. He was just running the ball, like handing it off, and they kept scoring touchdowns. On the flip side of that,
passes, and I think they were both touchdowns because like they didn't throw anything, but when they did, they were touchdowns. Yeah.
On the flip side of that, The Miami Dolphins are obviously extremely good, but here's what I like the most about Miami. Miami has an extremely confident identity. They are physical, but they are the fastest team maybe ever assembled in NFL history. And they're saying, you know what? We're going to throw caution to the wind. We're going to go all in on the fact that this year's Super Bowl is in Vegas in a dome, and we're going to have good weather. We play in Miami, so we're going to have at least 8 of our games in at least decent weather, warm weather, hopefully avoid some rain. And then we're going to hope that we can get some home field advantage in the playoffs and maybe win enough games to where we can get the cold weather teams to come down here. And that's going to roll the dice. It's the same sense of like Buffalo wanting to build their team or Kansas City wanting to build their team in a way that where it's like, hey, no, the Patriots always did this. The Patriots wanted you to come up to Boston in December and January and be miserable in the snow. And for them to dink and dime and run the ball down your throats and just to make you quit in the weather. Miami's going to try doing the opposite way. They're going to try and get you down in Miami in January. It's going to be 80 degrees, and they're still got guys running 4.2s all over your ass. So I give them a ton of credit for, if I was a fan of this team, I'd be so pumped about the identity of my team and the talent they've surrounded that identity with. The other point I'd like to make, at this point in time, I don't remember the last time, and it might be Sean McVay, and maybe that's it, but even Sean McVay, I don't feel like had this much hype this quickly about a young guru of a coach coming in and being that successful that quickly. Like Brian Daboll last year. Did he win Coach of the Year? He might have. Like, everyone loving Brian Daboll, and now look at his offense in year 2, right? It seems not as creative. It seems a little stale. It seems not as effective, and it doesn't seem to be working. Mike McDaniel's offense from year one was like, holy crap, this kid's like a professor. He's a little guru. He's smoking weed. He's vaping. He's an interesting cat. But I'm sure defenses will catch up to him. Not only have they not caught up to him, his offense looks even better, and it now doesn't even look that much like Kyle Shanahan's anymore. It looks more evolved even from Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I don't buy the Dolphins still right now today as a Super Bowl contender because, again, those jerseys in January football, I just don't know how it's going to work, right? And Lamborghinis always have to go in for a tune-up, and someone's going to pull a hamstring, someone's going to tweak something, and when that happens, this team could fall apart. But they do still have a physical offensive line, and they have an incredible defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio with some dudes on that defense. So Miami is absolutely, right now through 3 weeks, the most impressive team in the NFL. But so much that, again, goes to, as a fan, I love the identity, and I love that my head coach has not only just relied on his scheme in year 2, he's improved it. He keeps improving it. This is incredible, incredible coaching from Mike McDaniel, and it needs to be addressed. Now, it's still early. Things could fall off the rails, but through 3 weeks, it's the best coaching in the NFL so far.
No question. And they've had some different, situations. It's not like the Dolphins have everything's just come so easy to them. I mean,
New England held them.
They played a tough New England team. That's always a difficult in-division matchup for them. And they started the season against the Chargers, a very talented offense in the league. And they had to take them down to the wire and play a very close game there. So they've won a lot of different ways already this season. And that is usually a good indicator of a team's versatility and their makeup in general and the culture, right? So we know that they're able to pull out wins in different ways and face various obstacles and still overcome all of those. They're well equipped. Their depth is the biggest question on this team. So if more players do start to go down, that's when they may run into a problem. But for the time being, as long as Tua stays healthy and one of Tyreek or Waddle is healthy for every game, and then you've got several running backs that can dominate in this backfield, you do have some wiggle room there with this team. And yeah, right now, Miami and San Fran are like running away with best team in the league. And I think Miami is probably number one in that conversation because they just have what I would say is the better quarterback than Brock Purdy.
Yeah. And you know what's so frustrating is I think that Mike McDaniel's just a really unique and special guy. And I know the teams are going to try to find the next Mike McDaniel. I think there's maybe just he's a one of one in the sense that he got an opportunity to be taken in by a brilliant football family in the Shanahan family and work with a bunch of other guys who were like-minded but all similar age and pushed each other with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. And he has let his own vibes and personality run with this offense. And like I said, watching that game yesterday, it doesn't even necessarily look like San Francisco's offense anymore. Like even like Matt LaFleur's offense looks still like San Francisco's offense, right? The play action, the roll of the quarterback, more physical tight end play. Miami just is starting to look like this unique hybrid of it. And maybe it's just because of the athletes that he has and he's recruited. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know what would make this offense better? Not physical, tough Kyle Juszczyk type players, but Tyreek Hill type players. And maybe that's what Mike McDaniels, that was his, brilliance on it. I don't know, but whatever it is, it looks different because of that.
Yeah. And they kind of had remnants of the Chiefs. I mean, some of the trickery and the unique play calls around the line of scrimmage, or in at the goal line, I should say, those, like tosses inside, and a lot of misdirection. Yeah, it definitely showed the creative element outside of just we're going to beat you on these zone runs because we're better at blocking and better.
If you're the Broncos, really quick, final thought, like what do you do? Like honestly, if I'm the Broncos,
I don't think they can do anything.
I would fire someone. Like you'd have to do something. Like in my opinion, or like bench someone. Be like, like you have to find something. In my opinion, you cannot just retrot this back out. And I know your favorites now going to Chicago next week, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, coming up later too. But like that is just, that's unacceptable. Like the players have to look at the coach and be like, hold some accountability. They're going to watch the film, and there's going to be an obvious one person played worse than others, right? Like someone has to get fired or canned or benched or something, just so you can say to yourself, all right, there's some accountability here. And it's not Russ. Russ didn't play great. Russ didn't play great, but offensively, they look slightly better than and more consistent than last year. But your defense, my God.
Yeah. No, it was really, really bad. I don't know defensively what they can do to turn it around, but you saw in the locker room afterwards, so many of the Broncos players were just beyond dejected. And
that video is brutal.
Bowles talking about how he's been here 7 years and all he's done is lost. And hell, that could take a toll on an athlete. Like a lot of these guys have won in their careers, most of their careers, and come to the NFL, and wins are hard to come by. So yeah, it's tough for some of those mainstays there in Denver. And I will just say, because we've been as guilty, I've been as guilty of this, maybe we anointed Sean Payton too much as well. Like
there was a lot of 7 and 9s in there.
He had an all-time great in Drew Brees, and they had a lot of winning seasons, but they had a lot of mess seasons too. And just to, I thought him coming to Denver was going to be an instant like boost and surge, but that was, and rightfully so, he's getting a lot of flack now for calling out Nathaniel Hackett, talking about how it was an embarrassment. Well, it wasn't that embarrassing. It wasn't 70
points embarrassing, no.
Yeah. So that was...
And Nathaniel Hackett was 2-1 through 3 games last year. I heard that today.
There you go.
That's a lot.
There you go. Yep. Interesting stuff. So, yeah, they're going to have to turn it around very quickly to at least salvage some optimism in that locker room for sure. All right, let's move to another one with the Chargers on the road at the Vikings. This was a close game as opposed to the previous one mentioned. Chargers win 28-24. a battle of the winless teams here, trying to avoid 0-3, and that will go to the Vikings. Herbert throws for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen with a career-high 18 catches for 205. He also threw a touchdown to Mike Williams, who unfortunately tore his ACL in this game and is going to be out for the entire season. So the rookie first-round pick, Quentin Johnston, now is going to get instantly thrust into the starting lineup, I would imagine, and have to take on a bigger role. But nonetheless, despite the injury, the Chargers pull out the 4-point win.
Yeah.
Brandon Staley, curiously, late in this game, went for it on
It's
4th
so
and
bad.
1
So
from
bad.
his own 24-yard line with the lead. Joshua Kelly gets stuffed on the run, and that gives the Vikings an opportunity to drive 24 yards and win the game. But the Chargers got the game-sealing interception, so kind of bailed out their head coach there. The game-sealing interception in the end zone with 7 seconds left, and that secured the game there. But Los Angeles avoiding an absolutely monumental collapse for this franchise. They get their first win of the season. Meanwhile, Minnesota now, Mark,
One-score games.
The one-score games. They are now 0-3 after going 11-1.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think Vikings fans right in this morning have got to be going through it in a way that's different. Like they're in a similar sense, kind of in between the Broncos and the Bears, right? Like the Broncos, they're going through it because they just invested so heavily in a head coach, and their quarterback is now basically untradeable. Like the contract is so bad that if you're not happy with your quarterback, if you're the Broncos, they're in a world of hurt because they're bad and they don't have a lot of great options to make moves, right? The Vikings are in a world of hurt because they expected to be good. They're bad, but they've all been close losses, so they're not like horrendously bad. You can see the hope, right? And you like your head coach, you like your skill position players, but then your quarterback's on the last year of his deal. And so you're kind of in this, do we just now go so bad when we get a top pick quarterback? Do we need to, you know what I mean? Like, so they're in this whole other world of hurt where it's like the Bears are like historically bad and they're not committed to their head coach, their quarterback. They can, and they have the picks. So it's like levels of horrendous, all teams 0-3, but in different situations for what they're dealing with. For the Vikings, I mean, listen, you've got to find a way, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, to stop with the crucial turnovers, and you've got to find a way at the end of the game to be more organized than that. When the Chargers gift you that, you have to win that game. Like, you have to win that game. And so that's bad. And as far as the Chargers go, Staley, there's 2 levels of how bad that decision was to go for it. Number one, just like situationally, I get it. If you get the first down, you win the game. Okay. But the play call was a terrible play call, and you're giving it to a backup running back who has not had success all day. I know I started Kelly in my goddamn fantasy over Isaiah Pacheco, and I regret it immediately. Yeah. Immediately. Because I thought to myself, I don't want to watch Isaiah Pacheco run all over my Bears and get points. I bet Kelly will have a bounce back day against a bad Vikings defense. I won't at least have to watch that and be cringe about it. And no, he was hot garbage all day. And then they decided to give it to him again in a very predictable formation, as opposed to Keenan Allen had 18 receptions? Like, just freaking feed Keenan Allen. They can't stop him.
Yeah. I mean,
or do the quarterback sneak thing where you're allowed to push with your giant quarterback.
Kelly had 11 carries for 12 yards.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, it was brutal. So there's levels. That was bad in itself. If you're going for it, I at least understand. If you get it, you win. But the play call was horrible, and you shouldn't have gone for it, because you could have gotten them to have to drive 80-plus yards probably if you have a good punt with no timeouts, and they have to score a touchdown. It's not even like field goal to win. They have to score a touchdown. No timeouts, 80-plus yards, and you have studs on your defense, and you're a defensive guy. So you're a defensive coach not believing in your own defense. Like, it's just bad on so many levels for Staley. And now they lose Mike Williams for the year, but that's why they drafted Quentin Williams. We said on the show, drafting Quentin Williams was so smart because one of them will go down.
Quentin Johnson, sorry. One of them will go down. You know what I mean? And it happened. And now you just got to hope that the other one stays healthy. And so for that would be Keenan Allen. So now you got to hope that Keenan Allen stays healthy and the Chargers should be okay. Yeah, and it's this team could use Eckler, right about now, honestly. Um, the good news for them, I guess, is that they go to the Raiders. They could find themselves at 2-2 and kind of
Yep.
start to
That's a
stack
big
these
game
wins.
now
But
for both teams. That's a big game next week now.
it is, and then it's Cowboys Chiefs for the Chargers. So they really do need to get to 2-2 so that they can find their rhythm ahead of two very difficult games coming up, and then after that, they get a couple easier ones moving forward. But this is the Chargers, man, and that's the thing is, you even when they win, it's like, man, you just don't feel confident overall in the group in every situation moving forward, and that's why we've said they're kind of like the Cowboys in that way, where there's so much optimism and good things to talk about,
Yeah.
but then there's always that thing where but they just always find a way to fall apart or choke or not win one playoff game. So look, I mean, the Chargers are gonna have to do a lot more in the coming weeks. But good on them to escape. Good on them for bailing out their coach and sealing the game with that interception. But yes, got to be much better moving forward. Patriots at Jets got this game just brutal, like so boring.
Ugly.
I don't think anybody wanted to watch this game. On top of it, the weather wasn't ideal. The paint was bleeding on the field.
Guys, teeth were falling out. That was hilarious. That was such a great viral video. That guy, and he knew it as soon as they started to go. And my grandfather, rest his soul, had those bottom dentures too, and they would pop out. When they'd go, and he knew it. He knew it.
Yeah, there's the guy knew instantly for sure. I guess the good thing for the Patriots here is that it was their 15th win in a row over the New York Jets. So they, officially own that team, and the Jets can't find a way to get a victory there. But yeah, bad weather game. Neither offense looked good. Quinnen Williams got hurt in the game. Defensively, It was just kind of like sloppy game. And you kind of anticipated that with the two offenses that were rolling into town, add in the weather circumstances, and it kind of just left us with a meh game. I don't think either of us have many prominent takeaways, but I won't speak for you, so I'll let you kind of take the floor with any comments you may have on this one.
No, for the Patriots, it's a business trip. Get in, play a good defense, keep it smart, keep it downhill, keep it in the hands of your running backs. 3 yards to the cloud of dust. Let's get in, get out, get a victory. I think Bill Belichick knew that Zach Wilson's not going to beat him. Like, he's not going to beat us, so we can't beat ourselves. So they played a very conservative game plan, and that's the Patriot way. They get a W, they move on, they beat the Jets. For the Jets, they are in that point now where the fans, similar to Bears fans, they're in a similar spot where we both are losers and we should not have had expectations, but we both had expectations. And now, for different reasons, they're not living up to the expectations. So now we're angry and we're grasping and we're getting frustrated. And the Jets are in a spot, though, where they know they have a roster that is should be better than what it is and built to win. And so I do feel like the Jets cannot put Zach Wilson back out there. I mean, he's so bad. He is
terrible.
Just like terrible. Like, not even Justin Fields, where it's like, well, no, like, he's got this thing and he's a freak and but it's I feel like it's the coaching. Zach Wilson is just bad. Like, he's not a good quarterback. He's just not it. In the similar way to a lot of small, shifty guys, the Johnny Manziels, it's not working. It's not going to work. So stop it. So if I was a Jets fan, I would be hammering the radio stations today. I'd be all over, get me Kirk Cousins. I'd be all over, trade for Russell Wilson for a year. Like, how do we do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or, you know what I mean? Or like, seriously,
just
go out
anything.
Like, seriously, go out and get me Jacoby Brissett. Like, find me anyone
Winston,
who can like Jameis Winston, who could just be a professional quarterback. Because this kid, he can't do it. He can't do it.
I mean, Andy Dalton might be a guy that can
get Andy Dalton.
Be a good call for you. I mean, we just saw what he did with the Panthers.
The Panthers could use a pick. The Panthers could absolutely use a third or fourth round pick. Just throw and for the only reason I say that is I think it's for the psyche of the franchise. Like, I do think Robert Saleh and his staff with Aaron Rodgers and this defense works. And so I just worry this could get so out of hand, so uncontrolled that they might be like, do we fire Saleh? Do we not? Like, You need to bring someone in there so you can get to that 7-8 win mark, feel good about it, right the ship. Zach Wilson's not getting you to 7-8 wins. He's not.
Yeah, and you need a guy that can just
because the locker room you see it on the sideline.
Manage. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, like the Bears locker room is not giving up on Justin Fields. You look at the sideline, it's not DJ Moore and them going, dude, this guy can't play. It's not that. They're looking at their coaching staff and kind of folding their arms and going, what's going on here? Like, yep, we kind of told you so. In the Jets, it's different. It's the team looking at the one player going, you're the problem, it's you. Like, so in that point, you got to get that cancer out of there. And you gotta, I'd cut him, honestly, just like move on. You can't put him back out there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. They need to do something. They got to go find a backup out in the league because that's what Zach Wilson's a backup quarterback. And
Colt McCoy,
you want to get a better backup quarterback. Yeah. I mean, hey man, I wouldn't even necessarily advocate it in most circumstances, but a call to Carson Wentz, what worse can happen at this
anyone,
point, you know,
someone, because you're losing the players and that's bad. Like it's real. That's bad.
Yeah. Cause that just creates, issues moving into next year when you get Aaron Rodgers back at that point, because you've created, festering feelings in that locker room that don't go away quickly. The Bills go on the road and quiet the Washington Commanders, who were starting the season 2-1, looking good. All of a sudden now, 3 weeks in, we forget about that Bills week 1 stinker. The Bills putting up 37 points in a 37-3 rout over the Commanders. Buffalo rushed for 168, uncharacteristic for Buffalo. So that was good to see. They got James Cook going, and Josh Allen had some timely runs himself. Defensively, the Bills sacked Sam Howell 9 times, and he threw 4 interceptions. So welcome to the NFL moment for Sam Howell, who is making his, what I believe, 4th NFL start, maybe 5th NFL start. And Washington now 2-1. My whole thing is they've been kind of playing with house money. They got 2 wins early. I had them at 7 wins on the season. I still feel, that they're right around that mark. They're a tough out some weeks, but these are the little bumps in the road that you're going to get with a young quarterback, a not completely polished roster, and some holes on the team. The other thing that stood out to me when watching this game was how quickly that Washington front has not, like, it was the scariest thing ever in like 2018, right? I mean, Chase Young, you had Sweat, you had Jonathan Allen. Like all these, you're like, wow, this front is so imposing. Like it's going to be really hard. Chase Young out there, he's still starting, but he just like didn't have the motor at all. Wasn't really running things down. I wonder if he's still very much hurt, which very well could be the case. I don't know.
He's in a contract here.
The Commanders all around are a tough out. They're a pretty well coached team, but they also ran into a very talented Bills team that they just couldn't keep up with. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it was. The Bills hitting their stride and the Commanders kind of realizing, okay, we're not at that level just yet.
I'll just say this. I really think this is for Buffalo. This is absolutely now. They've 2 weeks in a row got off a lot of frustration and are playing extremely good football since that Monday night loss. And we haven't seen them. They haven't been on national TV since that ugly loss. And so I think people are still undervaluing the Bills. And after that week 2 win against the Raiders, and I think this is another example for them. But listen, we just went on the road and we just completely outclassed and dominated the upstart Commanders. And so I think it's a reminder to everyone, hey, that clash against the Dolphins next week, that's for a lot of the marbles early on here. And the Dolphins might be the hottest team in football right now, but the Bills 2 weeks in a row with the way their offense is playing and their defense is showing their teeth might be the second hottest. And so as far as the Commanders go, Sam Howell showed some things that were really concerning, but again, you're giving him the season. He gets the season. So this is just another piece, a data entry point into the weighing the positive and negatives when the outcome comes to the season for Sam Howell. But this was certainly a bad negative. You'd like to say, hey, there would be a moment where you say to your young quarterback, they're just beating us right now. You're clearly not seeing it. So let's just move the ball, stop turning it over. Let's run it. Let's check down. But they didn't do that. And even when they tried, he still was making bad decisions with the football. And that's a concern. But you got to give him now all right, look at it, read it, coach it up, get back to it. So we'll see.
He did flash the athleticism with a really nice run with a couple spin moves and a juke inside the red zone. So, I mean, he's definitely like solid, you know. He reminds me a little bit of maybe a little bit more athletic Baker Mayfield.
I like him more than Ritter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you like him more than Ritter. And as of right now, I like him more than Bryce Young from the young quarterbacks. I know the last 2 years, but like Bryce, you haven't seen much out anyways, and he's already injured. And so we'll talk about the other young quarterback. I don't like him as much as CJ Stroud, though.
Yeah. No, CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans put on a show against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one really shocked me, and I guess it shouldn't have, because the Texans have won 16 of 19 in the series and 10 of their last 11 against the Jaguars.
Divisional games, man. Never bet
crazy.
Divisional games.
Right, yeah. I mean, the Jaguars always have the Colts number, and the Texans apparently always have the Jaguars number. I didn't realize it until looking this up. But yeah, CJ Stroud, incredibly efficient. This is the type of game that you need to give your
I've been
young
talking about.
We've been talking about the pass attempts. 20 of 30. That's in the range.
There you go.
Where you're fine with 20 of 30, 280, and 2 touchdowns for him. And you know, Stroud now becomes the third player ever in NFL history. I know this gets in the weeds of things, and it's kind of funny when you talk about NFL stats where they're just finding a stat for everything. But I think it's somewhat telling. He's the third quarterback in history to have 900 or more passing yards in his first 3 NFL games. The only other 2 were Cam Newton and Justin Herbert. So some good company there to begin with. Obviously, they're trusting him with a lot. But one of the cool things out of this game, Mark, was NFL history being made here as well. Andrew Beck, the Jags fullback, right, to the Texans fullback, became the heaviest player in NFL history to return a kickoff for a touchdown, an 85-yard touchdown in the third quarter. 255 pounds, and he reached 20 miles an hour on this kick return touchdown. How about that? Give it up for the big man.
You know, I love that. That highlight was amazing. I will say this. I was shocked by this. The Jags, as you know, I predicted them to be a 14-win team. I really thought they would be the team that built on the success of last year, and now that's the Dolphins. Like, the Dolphins are doing what I thought the Jags would do, where they just have a second year of the system, the momentum, adding the players, and boom, that growth step, right? And so far, we have not seen it. I mean, since week 1, it's been bad quarterback play, really shaky defensive play, bad special teams plays, bad in the red zone, and credit to the Texans, because I'm going to use the Texans later on as an example, but they have a young rookie coach, and their defense goes on the road against a really talented third-year player who's got a ton of weapons, and they hold him to 17 points on the road. And while doing it, he's a defensive coach that allows his offensive coordinator to play action, running guys under the center. You know what I mean? A physical brand of football, not just spread RPOs and bubble screens left and right everywhere. And what'd you know? You score 37 points and your quarterback looks pretty darn efficient. I think you know where I'm building my case towards of what I'm going with this. But it's really empowering to see, especially because that quarterback goes to a school that apparently can't produce good NFL quarterbacks, which I think is just malarkey. Happy for CJ Stroud. We both said it. CJ Stroud was our number 1 quarterback in this last class. He so far has looked head and shoulders above the other 2 in just the sense that he's remained healthy. He's not turning the ball over, and they're asking him still to do a lot. And he's showing up. And kudos to him getting his first win on the road with not a lot of help around him offensively. Absolutely. Really, really good-looking day for C.J. Stroud and the Texans. And the Jaguars, they have a tough schedule. Now, again, remember when we talked about the Jaguars and building them, in my opinion, to a 14-win team before the season, it's workable because a lot of the tough games were at home. But if you're losing at home to division rivals by 20 points, yikes. Like, it's not a good start for the Jags.
Yeah, this has been a really rough start for them. The offense just has not been able to string together consistent performances, even from drive to drive. And, another glaring thing yet again, I mean, I said this last week, their inefficiency in the red zone has continued to come back. I mean, they had a missed field goal in their first drive. Then they were like 3 and out. Then it was a blocked field goal. And then it was a turnover. It's just, they're not converting touchdowns. And it's obviously a big problem for a Doug Peterson offense with all of the talent that they have. I'm still confident they will find their mojo. They'll turn things around at some point here. But that is why I was a little reluctant with them. I mean, we have differences. We both had them winning the South, but that's why I had them more as a 10-win team, was because just the difficulty of putting it all together that quickly in one season. I felt like there was still, like next year might be that year that I hope that they will get to that, elite class of team in the league. And I still feel by the end of this year that they're going to be a totally different team. They're going to be clicking on all cylinders. You just want it to start happening soon because, like you said, you can't really afford too many of these losses to the Texans and things like that. The Chiefs loss you can handle. The Texans one much harder to swallow. And on top of it, they were down 17-0 at the half. I mean, they put themselves in a position where they had to completely abandon the run and fight back with everything that they had. So, yeah, a lot not going right for the Jaguars the last 2 weeks. Texans looking very competent. And as you said, the rookie quarterback who's working with the fewest weapons is the one that's doing the best. Go figure. The Colts go on the road in an overtime game against the Ravens and pull out a victory here. Matt Gay with 4 field goals over 50 yards in this one, including the game winner in overtime. No one seemed to want to win that game. Went back and forth, and then late in overtime, Ravens try and go for it on 4th down, and it was an incomplete pass, questionable no call by the refs. That ends up leading to the game-winning field goal there for the Colts. Lamar got back to the rushing Lamar that we've seen in the past. He put up 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, looked really good. I mean, honestly, I thought the Ravens offense for the most part looked pretty good. It was another kind of situation of not converting things into enough touchdowns. They only scored 19 points in an overtime game. But, really it was 2 teams kind of, fighting and clawing for every inch that they could get. And it was just the Colts that were the ones that ended up pulling out on top for this one. From an AFC North perspective, Steelers fans, Bengals fans, Browns fans, all very happy that the Ravens dropped this one, because that division still kind of remains wide open now at this point, with the Ravens had an opportunity to kind of start to run away with it early in the season. Meanwhile, the Colts are, no Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew here. They're showing that they're a tough out, and they're a team that's, not going away just because they have a rookie quarterback and a backup quarterback starting games for them. They're very much in this thing. All of this, by the way, without Jonathan Taylor. So tough loss for the Ravens. Colts should be encouraged, but I think I don't really think either team we could have too many takeaways for this one. Rough weather early in the day for them, and Baltimore will be just fine, I think.
Indianapolis is well coached. It's as simple as that. The rookie Shane Steichen has showed up, and he's got game plans. They're working. He doesn't have a ton of talent, but he's maximizing the most of his talent. This is a shocking thing. I didn't know you could do this. He's actually customizing his game plans to fit around his talent,
his personnel,
which is wild. Like, how can you go? You can't have 2 more different quarterbacks than Minshew and Anthony Richardson, and yet both can look really good in an offense. I didn't know that was possible, that you could actually just, customize based on the players you had. I thought you just had to run a system no matter what the system was, and that's just how it was. But anyways, I will say, so that's my point of the Colts. I think they're well coached, and they're gonna be feisty. They're gonna win more games, I think, than we both predicted because of this. They're gonna be feisty. They're gonna stay involved with stuff. And honestly, Gardner Minshew, he might actually be the best backup quarterback in the NFL, like a true
Yeah.
backup
Yeah,
quarterback
very
to
well.
come in, win you a couple games while your starter's down, that type of guy.
If
As far
Anthony
as the
Richardson wasn't hurt, I would say if you're the Jets, go get Gardner Minshew. But the thing is, I don't think the Colts are willing to give
No, the
him
Colts
away.
want to keep him in building.
Yeah.
He was brought there with Steichen because he was with Philly to like help and run the system and know the offense.
Absolutely.
And for the Ravens, the injuries really showed up to me today. Like they didn't play last week because of divisional game. They knew each other. But like this week, you clearly could tell they were missing people. It just made it out of sync for them with the weather. Lamar, I thought, was more vintage Lamar, but I think that's the problem. He was missing Odell Beckham, like that. Odell Beckham missing the game, like that full high-flying offense that they're trying to do, just it couldn't get off the ground. I'm not worried about the Ravens yet. Tough loss, ugly loss, but not worried about them yet.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time, and they have looked good in offensively in most of the games they've played. So yeah, they'll turn it around. I think we're both confident in that. Panthers go on the road at Seattle, and the Seahawks run away with a 10-point victory, 37-27.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit closer than the Seahawks would have liked in this one. Andy Dalton getting the start for the injured Bryce Young, and he looked very good, but man, they had him throw 58 passes in this game. They're like, hey, Andy, you haven't thrown passes in an NFL game for a couple
Get
of
off
years.
the bench.
Come out here and toss a bunch for us. But he looked pretty good for them, helped them move the ball at times. But really, it was the balanced attack by Seattle, which I think now they're starting to like get back into the stride, right? Like they're running the football the way that they were able to last year.
Kenneth Walker, 2 tutties, yeah.
They got Charbonnet involved, and Geno seemed much more comfortable than he has the last couple of weeks, getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers. We still haven't seen that breakout game from Jackson Smith and Jigba. And so, I mean, I think that's a great sign. Like Seattle still has room to improve and still guys that can come out and make big plays for them. So, yeah, I mean, what this boiled down to was Seattle's obviously the better team in this matchup, and you expected them to win. They got a double-digit victory. Panthers, meanwhile, they're just don't have much going for them personnel-wise. Their defense is their bread and butter, but once their defense is out there for, 80 minutes, it's difficult to stop a good offense like the Seattle Seahawks. So that's really all this boils down to. You just hope that Bryce Young get back out there and get him reps, because that's what the season's about at the end of the day. Get your young guy reps, get him more comfortable, and then go get him some reinforcements.
Yeah, I would say that's a great point you ended on there. For the Panthers, this was a chance for them to steal a victory. The Panthers don't have a first-round pick next year. I'm going to remind myself of that. They don't have a first-round pick next year. So you're not – the idea of like, oh, just tank. It doesn't necessarily apply to you. I know you want your high second-round pick and all this or whatever, but – like in the end, this year has got to be a culture building and getting your young quarterback confidence and experience and all of that, right? While also trying not to get him killed. And for the Seahawks, they avoided one of the biggest trap games ever. At home, backup quarterback, bad team, and you hang on for a 10-point victory. You will take that. You'll walk away. You've scored 37. Your offense looked good. And so you just swallow that. You move on and you say, okay, little closer than we wanted to be, but we avoided the trap game, right? We avoided what the Ravens fell. The Ravens lost at home to a backup quarterback. The Seahawks didn't. So kudos to them, well-coached team, avoiding that pitfall.
Absolutely. There's something to be said for that, for sure. I mean, just you got to win the games you are supposed to win, because wins are not guaranteed in the NFL, and we've seen that time and time again. All right, the Bears go on the road to the Chiefs, and it was not good. It did not go well for
it was a
Chicago.
Murder.
The highlights for this one, I'm gonna have to put on the objective hat real quick here, Mark. So forgive me, but Andy Reid did become the 4th all-time leader in wins, passing Tom Landry with let me see what the exact one was. 271. 271. A lot of victories there for Andy Reid. Big day for Travis Kelce with his girlfriend on hand. Really, if you're just talking about box score standouts, Chicago 11 first downs, Chiefs 31 first downs, 20 more than the Chicago Bears in this one, as Fields goes 11 for 22 for 99 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. All around pretty rough day for Chicago. I will yield the floor to you, sir.
So I'll start with the Chiefs. Again, the Chiefs did exactly what they needed to do, right? An opponent comes in here that is underachieving, kind of a mess, disaster, and you avoid the pitfall, right? You come out, you play your game, big plays early, getting huge stops on third downs early, putting up touchdowns, and you're up, by 34-0 at halftime, and the game is over. Like, you did exactly what you needed to do, and that's a huge credit to the Chiefs, especially when they put on their own self-pressure of having Taylor Swift in the stadium to watch them. Like, you bring that on yourself and you still perform at that high level. Like, huge kudos to the Chiefs. And I will say, I think that if you're a Chiefs fan, the one thing you have to look at is you say to yourself, the only thing that's still a slight concern is that even through all of this, the Chiefs wide receiver core still, to me, doesn't look like it is the type of wide receiver core that helps continue this dynasty last for forever. But they've shown vast improvement from week one, right? So it's incremental. And you say to yourself, okay, if this is what the wide receiver core is and Kelsey's healthy, then this team is Super Bowl caliber. But if they have bad games, we've seen the wide receiver core literally lose them a game already. So you kind of are always living on that line. But the Chiefs defense is young. It's terrific. Karlaftis, Jones. Just terrific right now.
Yeah.
I'll turn my head to the Bears. We said on this show on the preview episode and that midweek thing when we were talking about the Bears, they had to find a way to make sure this wasn't an embarrassment. And they knew that was their objective. And it was an absolute embarrassment. It was a shellacking. It was I think Barstool Big Cat said it best. The Chicago Bears have turned into the team that you invite your girlfriend to for homecoming because you know you're going to put up big stats. Like they're the scheduled FCS team you schedule for homecoming. Alabama versus, Campbell State, and you UTF Austin, and you just beat them up on homecoming, and you put up big numbers, and you go all and have party and get laid after the game, right? Like, so that is reality of what happened. Like, that is the reality. You are absolutely incoherent and incompetent. And when your team is that bad, Clay Harbor had the tweet, and I wanted to share it because I think this drives home the point really well. When you're a defensive head coach and you can't figure out a way to not give up 25 points in 13 straight games, that's a problem. And that is a legit problem. And the Bears' defensive personnel this year is much better than last year. So even if you discount the games last year and you're just on a 3-game losing streak, giving up 25 or more points, the rookie DeMeco Ryans head coach against a good Jaguars offense on the road with less talented personnel gave up 17 points this weekend. Like, at some point in time, I am just fully now in on, unless I see drastic changes. And the Bears, this is true. Like, you got to state the facts. They will get guys back in the coming weeks. Tevin Jenkins, the offensive line, should get better in the next 2 weeks. They have a much easier schedule in the next 3-4 weeks. So they have an opportunity here to turn things around. But until I actually see it, I am 100% in on, I'm okay with keeping Ryan Poles. He didn't hire Matt Eberflus. He really didn't. He was told that Matt Eberflus was the guy. He had one interview with Matt Eberflus. It's like, all right, the organization paid Bill Pullian $500,000 to find a head coach. He found a head coach. We're going to roll with this. I think that Ryan Poles is a capable GM who understands football as a former player. I do. I like the moves that Ryan Poles has made, getting DJ Moore and the savvy he's had. At this point in time, I am 100% out on the Bears coaching staff from top to bottom. Luke Getsy had a chance to be the savior because he was the one guy who made the changes, right? Who said our offense is going to go from this crappy thing Monday Night Football, we debut a new offense, and now we score points. That he was the savior. And he had all offseason to build on that, and he made it way worse. And now you have a quarterback who had shown all this promise who's way worse. And so I'm out on. I'm just completely, at this point in time, I am out on Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy. I'm done with them. Like, that is, I would fire them today. If it was me, I would just fire them, because you have opposing players, as we mentioned the last episode. You have they're calling out the staff, saying you're not using the players right. Like, the players don't lie.
Yeah.
Justin Fields and the players were hugging each other at the end. They had this weird, like, hey, we're in this together, guys. Like, it seems as though everyone in that building, players wise, are looking around going like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
Like, I can't audible every play. And defensively, they are not competitive, and you have a defensive head coach, and you added a lot of talent in the offseason to that defense. So that is my overall view. They are the worst coached team right now in the NFL. Like, and if you watch the film, it's not deniable. Even Sean Payton has improved the Broncos offense. They are scoring more, right? Like, he's controlling his side of the ball. Like, the Bears are the worst coached team in the NFL. And so that is obviously, like, there's no way out of that for me without changing the coaching staff.
Some wholesale
The problem
changes.
therein lies then, you also at this point look like you're going to end up having 2 of the top 5 picks in the NFL draft. And then what do you do with the quarterback position? Because I still believe in Justin Fields. I really do. I know it's maybe dumb to say. I fell in love with the guy, and maybe that's the stupid thing. You can't fall in love with the players. But he has shown, even on the deep balls, like the DJ Moore drop deep ball, the couple, like, this dude is different. Like, he can, unlike Zach Wilson, I really think Justin Fields can play quarterback at a high level in this league. I really do. But this offense is extremely poorly coached, and they're not good right now. And the offensive line is not good, and they're poorly coached. And that is the first time,
the recipe for disaster.
The first time I have seen the Chicago Bears run a slant pattern to DJ Moore in the regular season was on that touchdown pass late in the game in garbage time. Why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like that. I mean, why? Like, offensive football doesn't have to be in the shotgun with a back to your right or your left, or spread out, no back. Line the kid under center. Get into I formation every once in a while. But you know how much we talked about Robert Tonyan in the offseason?
Yeah.
Where's Robert Tonyan?
Where is he? Yeah.
Where is he? Oh my God, Robert Tonyan this. The coaches have Robert Tonyan. Where is he? Luke Getsy had him in Green Bay. We don't run any power tight end sets. So again, I'm putting all this out there to basically say, what does it matter? I don't know. But I, as a Bears fan and as a person who is paid to talk about sports and analyze it in my show, and we do this show, and objectively, I'm going to sit here and say, in the end, it probably doesn't matter. I think you stick with the GM. You let him go get a guy offensively, a new coach, and you're going to get probably a new quarterback and all that, right? Start over. But I will defend Justin Fields. I truly believe this is a case of horrific coaching malpractice from the offensive and defensive, your head coach and your offensive coordinator. It's malpractice. It's terrible. And it is as bad as it can get in Chicago. The Bears are 3-point underdogs at home to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos just gave up 70 points on the road. And the Bears are underdogs to the Broncos. Vegas knows.
That's all you need to see.
That's all you need to say. Like, that's how bad it is for them right now. And yet, they have a chance to turn things around. And if you're at Eberflus, I mean, you are literally coaching at this point, not only for your head coaching job, like, do you want to be a coordinator again? Like, do you want to get hired again? Because that's now what you're coaching for. Because it's that ugly. It's that bad. Same with Luke Getsy. Like, you're coaching now for your job. Like, you're absolutely doing that. And it is ugly in Chicago. It's ugly. But I want it on the record. I'm firmly in the camp of, I believe it's coaching. I believe the talent is there to be successful. And I do believe that if it was up to me, I would keep Ryan Poles and let him and Kevin Warren try to actually hire a staff. Kevin Warren was involved in getting Poles and Eberflus. Poles was barely involved with getting Eberflus. It wasn't them. Now say no more hiring Bill Polian and outside horse sources to find the next coach. Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, I believe, can influence this organization in a way. The key will be, do they stick with Fields or not? And at this point, it doesn't look like they are, just because you're going to have the draft capital to go get who you want.
Exactly. Yeah. They are going to have the capital to do pretty much whatever they want with those picks next year. Yeah, that's a great point, and I won't go too much deeper into this game because it is what it is, as you've said pretty much all that needs to be said. But it did make me think of just potential candidates out there, and I'm like, Brian Flores with this Bears defense would look pretty cool. But
his defense stinks in Minnesota.
That's true. But they have no players to win.
Remember when we were going through the Bears coaching search, I wanted Brian Daboll. I was vehemently against a defensive guy. They hired a defensive guy. They cannot do it. Like, they can't do it. Like, you can't do it. It is so stupid right now to do something like that. I'm sorry. It just is, especially with how bad your football team has looked. And Eberflus was sold to us as the guy who'd come in and be like, just be a man. Culture. And we're going to make this team respectable again after the clown show that Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy won Coach of the Year. And Matt Nagy did not lose 13 straight football games, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, and the defense looked certainly a heck of a lot better under Nagy and his coaching regime. So for sure, that's a point well taken. And I don't want to overstate the point that we've made, but you've got a really bad Broncos team on the horizon, a certainly gettable Commanders team after that.
I know,
it's Vikings, Raiders. Like,
it's maddening.
There is a world in which the Bears find themselves at 4-3 going into the Chargers. There's a world where that exists.
The only way that happens, the only way that happens is if Luke Getsy puts his pride aside and runs the offense that he ran after that Monday night game last year. And like DJ Moore in the slot, slant route. Like, why did it take until the end of the third game in a blowout to run a simple offensive concept for your young quarterback who is never going to be Tom Brady, who's never going to be Aaron Rodgers? At his best, he's going to be Lamar Jackson, who needs things in his face, simplified, and structure. So again, it's malpractice. It's coaching malpractice, Dan.
Doing him a big disservice for sure. I feel for you and all my Bears fans, friends out there, brothers and sisters. I feel for you. And then the Steelers aren't too much better, but we'll get to that.
Finding ways to win games.
In few games. They are finding ways to win, that is for sure. But before that, we'll get to the last of the afternoon battles, the Cowboys at the Cardinals, and the Cardinals pulling out a win here against Dallas. Oh, you hate to see it, but you love to see it. 28-16, Cardinals victory over the Cowboys. Josh Dobbs and James Conner stealing the show, and got to give props to Dobbs, the former Steeler. First career win as a starter in the NFL, 28 years old. And the Cardinals never trailed in this game, Mark. That was a huge point of emphasis here. And, Dak Prescott, just very much of the Dak Prescott that we expect to see. 25 of 40, 249 yards, a touchdown and a pick. That's kind of Prescott's career. And that's why I, even after the Cowboys put up great performances the past 2 weeks, we were like, I don't know, it's the Cowboys still. And we felt this last year when they had a run. And we're like, yeah, they're looking good, but they're the Cowboys still. Like, at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you get rid of Kellen Moore. Doesn't matter if you, get rid of Jason Garrett and bring in Mike McCarthy. The personnel is the personnel. And Dak Prescott, for as quality of an NFL quarterback as he is, has a cap, and he doesn't go past that cap. It just doesn't happen. It's very Kirk Cousins, and that's what we're seeing here. No Trayvon Diggs hurt the Cowboys, definitely. But to give up 28 points after the performance that your defense has put up the last 2 weeks against one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league, brutal for the Cowboys. And the 13 penalties for 107 yards was just icing on the cake for a really just a perfect storm for Dallas in a very underwhelming performance there in the desert. But kudos to the Cardinals. Big win for them.
Yeah, I will say, as far as the Cowboys go, I mean, this is exactly what we said last week. The Cowboys offense hasn't had to do anything yet. And now today, their defense had a bad day after missing and losing their superstar, one of their 2 superstars for the year. Their offense was asked to do something to help them win a game, and this is what you get. So I expect to see more of this type of thing for the Cowboys now, up and down. There's going to be games where that defense finds its teeth again. It's really well coached. They still have a lot of star power beyond Diggs, and they're going to dominate some people. And then the next game is going to be a game where, because it's the NFL, defense doesn't have it, offensive team, and they really shock some people. They took the Cardinals for granted. Cardinals schemed really, really well. I think it does bear warning that Gannon, the head coach of the Cardinals, has spent time in Philly the last 2 years. Like, he knows the Cowboys from his time with the Eagles. I think he had a really good game plan for his defense against this team. So I expect the Cowboys to do a lot more of this up and down this year, kind of floating back and forth, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, because of this now, the Trayvon Diggs injury and Dak Prescott being who Dak is. For the Cardinals, here's the big question you got to start saying to yourself. This feels like the type of win now that will change the momentum for them to be a team that now stays scrappy. Kyler comes back and actually plays at some point, and now they're a team that's going to use their 2 high picks to draft a lot of maybe talent and load up on some talent, or trade one of those high picks to someone who wants a quarterback like this. It feels like this is a season-changing, like, momentum win. Now, if they go back to being stinky and they lose the next 3 straight, maybe they go back into full tank mode and whatever. But this has that feeling where it could be a momentum swinging win, depending on where the culture of the team goes and what they do next. I don't have their schedule in front of me. I don't know what's next for them, but that's what I'd say for them. Right now, it doesn't mean much except for the fact of where it takes you. Is it just a one-off? You beat the Cowboys, felt good, so you don't go 0 in the season? Or is this hey, we are more scrappy than we thought. Let's hang around and get Kyler back and see what this team looks like with Kyler Murray. I don't know. It was so shocking of a win that it's led to that type of feeling for me. If I was a Cardinals fan, I wouldn't know what to think if I was a Cardinals fan either.
Tough horizon for the Cardinals. They play
really?
the 49ers and the Bengals the next 2 weeks.
So they'll probably go back
if Joe
to
Burrow's
losing.
not there.
So they'll be
maybe
1-4. See, depending on how bad they lose those games. Yeah, so who knows? They probably should stay in tank mode and try to get Caleb Williams, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, once they get Kyler Murray back, they're definitely a much different team. And for the Cowboys, it's the Patriots and then the 49ers, Chargers, Rams. Like, they're not getting any like instant gimmies over the next few weeks too. So Cowboys need to respond to that loss quickly. Final game of the weekend before these 2 Monday night games that we have.
I've been waiting for this one from you.
Yeah, Steelers pull out a gutty 23-18 win over the Raiders. It was much closer than it needed to be. It seemed like the Steelers were in control for the vast majority of this game. They were down 7-0 and then scored 23 unanswered points. Felt like they were really at a stranglehold in this one. Jimmy G, after the game, evaluated now for a concussion, so we'll see what happens with him moving forward. That's a tough one. The Steelers got 3 interceptions off Jimmy G. Uncharacteristic performance for Jimmy from that perspective. And they were able to get multiple sacks on Garoppolo in this game too. So I mean, I'll speak to both sides of the ball here for the Steelers perspective, because for the Raiders, I felt like, they let one get away that when they could have gotten into it late. We'll talk about just that horrendous call at the end of the game to kick a field goal when you're down 8 instead of just try and tie the game. That was very bizarre. I feel like the Steelers got away with one there a little bit. Bad ref game too, I will say, but that's neither here nor there. Steelers were, I'm worried that they're, forming an identity of a feast or famine type of situation where they're just going to be, two big plays a game, and then the rest is, really hard to come by. I would still like to see much more consistency out of them. I was saying going into this, after how poor the offense was the first 2 weeks, that I felt, what this offense needed to be confident and moving forward was definitely to run the football with more consistency, which they did in this game to an extent. But really, I felt that they needed to score like 34 points against such a bad Raiders defense for it to feel good, because it was so bad the first 2 weeks that I felt you needed a complete reverse where you just knock the socks off of this team and really get rolling. They didn't quite get to that point. And so for all of the optimism that I have that, steps have been taken the last 2 weeks for this offense, it just doesn't feel like it's happening at a quick enough pace as something I would like. And they still weren't able to run the football very effectively, but it was much better. So I can't, it's hard. It's hard to feel, strongly one way or the other about this team, because I did think Kenny commanded the offense a little bit better. I thought he saw the field better, made better decisions overall. So it's like, whatever, I'll take it. It was a win too. So, good stuff. Defensively, I just feel like their cornerbacks are going to be a liability throughout the season.
Adams had a big game.
Adams had a massive, career game. Opposing number ones have kind of notoriously destroyed the Steelers, and they really haven't had a top tier corner since Ike Taylor, really, in terms of outside cornerback, and it's been a while. And so hopefully Joey Porter Jr., who's been given limited snaps these past few weeks, I think that he deserves some more playing time to see what they got in there, because that pass rush is lethal. And they've been more opportunistic as a defense in general. 8 takeaways in the first 3 games. From Alex Kozora, friend of the show, we've had him on before, tweeted out the last time the Steelers had this many takeaways in the first 3 games was in 2010, 2008, and 2005. And you know what happened those years? Steelers went to the Super Bowl. So there you go. Steelers going to the Super Bowl here in 2023. But no, all joking aside, it's a win. I'm not going to fault them too much. They were on the road. Felt more like a home game too. A lot of Steelers fans there. But a little discouraged that they let the Raiders come back in it. And yeah, at the 3-minute mark, you're Josh McDaniels. It's 4th and 4 from like the 5 or whatever it was. And he goes and kicks a field goal to bring him within 5 points. So you still need a touchdown when you could have tried to go for the touchdown and the 2-point conversion to tie it. It just didn't make sense. And they gave the Steelers really the opportunity there to run down the clock. And then they get the game sealing interception, with 20 seconds left on the clock or whatever to go. So terrible call by McDaniels there. I felt like the Raiders had a lot of momentum, probably could have tied that game there. But instead, Steelers hang on for the victory. So I'll take it. They're 2-1, have an opportunity to stack some wins now. And meanwhile, for the Raiders, just a really tough way to lose, because you were in that game and they had it. They had all the momentum at the end.
Yeah, never apologize for the win. Absolutely. And I will say your defense is playing really good, besides the fact that they can't stop the number one. I mean, sacks, getting after the quarterback, making it really tough on him. I will say the thing that to me is frustrating if I'm a Steelers fan too is just absolutely right. The consistency of the offense, to where it's like, hey, if we just can control the clock more and we can get easy scores, this defense can feast. Like, they can rush the quarterback. You want to put the opposing team in those situations to let TJ Watt just get after the quarterback, right? And it just feels like the Steelers at times, when they did that and they had a nice lead in the fourth quarter, then they just fell apart and they let the corners, the back end of the defense,
they were just
fail
gassed,
and
it's like, yeah.
And it almost cost them the game. McDaniels, obviously, that is analytics 101. Analytics came to the league 10 years ago, and ever since then, you absolutely know. Every fan knows it now too. Fans aren't dumb anymore. There's a lot of dumb fans, but for the majority of fans who are on the Twitter, the reporters all know it now too. the analytics say you absolutely have to go for it. And that's even one of those cases where before analytics, you just say, we don't have much time left. We just got to tie this game. We got to try, make a stand.
Intuition plays a part.
And you're down so big. The fact that you got yourself in that spot to come back, to have a chance, you got to go. Like, you got to try right there. You have momentum. So brutal decision-making from him. You would still need a touchdown. It never makes sense to kick a field goal if you still need a touchdown. You need to get touchdowns, all right? Like, that is what the game is about at that point in time. The Raiders, I don't think the Raiders are as bad as we thought at the beginning of the year to start the year. But again, we also predicted Jimmy G is going to miss time. That's Jimmy G. Looks like he's going to miss time. Could this be a moment where the season really starts to kind of fall apart for the Raiders? Then what do they do from there? This was a bad loss because I think the locker room doesn't trust the coach after a loss like that, and you lose your starting quarterback maybe for a game. So this could be one of those linchpin early season losses that defines the middle part of the season for the Raiders.
This stat from Opta Stats on Twitter or X, it's another one of those, in the weeds stats, but I found it interesting. Since the 2-point conversion was adopted in 1994, the Raiders are the only NFL team to attempt a field goal in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter when they were down by exactly 8 points. So within a touchdown 2-point conversion, an ability to tie the game on 2 plays. They're the only team to attempt a field goal in the last 3 minutes when down by 8 points and less than 5 yards to go. So, I mean, and I don't know how many instances that's happened since 94, but I imagine it's a decent sample size, at least probably a few dozen. And they're the only team to go with the field goal in that situation. So that alone will tell you how unpopular of a choice that was in your home field. I mean, you had all the momentum. So, yeah, I just thought that was crazy.
Brutal.
And as a Steelers fan, very happy that they opted to go for the field goal there. So, escape with the win if you're the Steelers, and that's something you'll take any day, especially against a team that's honestly had their number in recent years. It's the first road win against the Raiders in Mike Tomlin's tenure. So, there's something to be said for going to Vegas and pulling out a victory. Now the Steelers have the Texans before they go to take on the Ravens after that. So if they can win next week, find themselves 3-1, you're feeling pretty good, despite all of the shortcomings with this offense this year. So we got 2 Monday night games coming up here, Mark. We'll quickly do that. It's been a longer episode, but we've had a lot of crazy games this week for sure. Eagles at the Buccaneers and Rams at the Bengals. I have not heard word yet if Joe Burrow is going to play.
Yeah, it looks like game time decision.
Probably not. I'm guessing he's probably not, to be honest with you. But either way, Eagles getting 5 points at the Bucs, 2 undefeated teams there, and the Rams are on the road, and Cincinnati is favored by 3. So
I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles to expose the Bucs tonight. I really do. I think Baker on Monday night, that Eagles front 7 is going to eat. I think the Eagles will hit big plays early against that aging Bucs defense. Buccaneers are feeling themselves a little bit, surprising 2-0. I think similar to the Commanders, the way they fell, you know what I mean, to the Bills. I think a good team comes in, takes care of business, prime time. I love the Eagles tonight. And then if the Bengals, I would stay away from this game as far as betting or picking.
Yeah,
but
it's a hard one to predict. Yeah.
If the Bengals don't start Joe Burrow, I would take the Rams absolutely. If you can get the Rams now and just hope and at plus money that Burrow doesn't play, maybe go for it. But otherwise, I'll take the Bengals if Burrow plays. I think Burrow prime time. They've looked bad. I think he's going to push to play in this game, and if he does, I think they'll look good enough to win.
Yeah, I think the Bengals win even if Burrow doesn't play. And
doubting my Rams.
I think it'll be obviously a close game. I wouldn't take them to win the spread. I would say Bengals money line at that point. But I think just the tenor of that franchise right now. I mean, if you fall to 0-3, it's just what a brutal year all around. You're at home, like you have an opportunity here. And with Joe Burrow out, maybe that gives you some sort of lift. I just feel like the Bengals will find a way to eke out a victory against the Rams in this situation on prime time. And Zach Taylor, this is your time now to show up in these moments as well. But I agree with you for the Eagles. Total exposure of the Bucs. I would take that spread all day, hammer that. Eagles just gonna probably dominate that line of scrimmage, and they have good enough guys outside to handle Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So I think the Bucs are going to have to just dink it and dunk it down to Rashad White a lot and keep Baker Mayfield clean. And that's just they don't have enough offensive firepower, underneath to be able to pull that off. The Eagles can just run train on them all day. So I think that's what's going to happen there in Tampa, and we got another Monday night doubleheader. So that will do it for our show here on the Week 3 recap. We may have another show this week, so you just have to stay tuned for that. But if not, of course, we come back every week with our weekly recap episodes every Monday. So stay tuned. Appreciate you all listening and watching. Give us a like, subscribe, hit us up on YouTube or social media. We've got our link tree set up on Twitter, Facebook at FB Lounge Pod. Go check us out there, and we'll see you next time.